The silent air. The salvage vessel Wandering Star drifted through the outer reaches of the Kepler 442 system, her hull scarred by 1,000 close calls and her crew held together by coffee, stubbornness, and the slim hope that the next find would be the big one. Captain Alara Chen sat in the command chair, eyes fixed on the view screen where a dying red dwarf painted everything in shades of rust and amber. "Picking up something weird on long range," said Marcos, her navigator, his fingers dancing across his console. "Mass signature doesn't match anything in the database." Alara leaned forward. In 15 years of salvage work, weird usually meant profitable or dangerous, sometimes both. To find weird, big, really big. Marcos transferred the data to the main screen, orbiting the star at 0.7 AU. No heat signature, no electromagnetic emissions, no radiation. It's just there. The image resolved, a structure of impossible geometry, all sharp angles and smooth obsidian surfaces that seemed to drink in the starlight rather than reflect it. It was easily 5 kilometers across, a dark jewel rotating slowly in the dying star's embrace. "That's not natural," whispered Dr. Sarah Kim, the team's exo-archaeologist. She'd been half asleep in her station, but now she was wide awake, her face pressed almost against her monitor. "Those angles, that symmetry, that's engineered." "Old engineering. How old?" Alara asked, though part of her wasn't sure she wanted the answer. Sarah's hands flew across her keyboard, running comparative analysis against every known civilization's architectural signatures. One by one, the matches came back negative. Older than the Vrex Dominion, older than the Kashari Empire. "Captain, this could be pre-silence era." The bridge went quiet. The silence was what historians called the gap in the archaeological record, a 3-million-year period where no civilization seemed to exist anywhere in the galaxy. What came before was myth. What came after was everyone else. "We should report this," said Yuki, their chief engineer, ever the cautious one. "Let the universities handle it. We're salvage crew, not first contact specialists." Alara studied the structure. There was something about it, a pull she couldn't quite name, like a song heard in childhood that you can't quite remember but still hums in your bones. "We take a closer look first. Just a scan pass. If it's dangerous, we report and leave. If it's salvage," she let the implication hang. They all knew what a pre-silence find could mean. Retirement money. Legacy money. The vote was unanimous. The Wandering Star approached slowly, every sensor array extended, every passive system recording. The structure grew larger in the view screen, and with proximity came detail. The surface wasn't smooth at all, but covered in microscopic engravings, patterns that shifted and changed depending on the viewing angle. Mathematical formulas, star charts, genetic sequences. "I'm reading atmosphere inside," Marcos reported. "Hydrogen-oxygen mix. Breathable for humans. Pressure stable." "No power readings at all?" Alara asked. "None, but the environmental system is active. It's maintaining itself with zero detectable energy source." Yuki's voice carried a mixture of wonder and professional offense. "That violates about 6 laws of thermodynamics." They docked on what appeared to be a landing platform, a smooth section of hull that irised open as they approached, as if the station had been expecting them. The docking clamps engaged with a precision that spoke of technology far beyond their own. Alara led the away team. Herself, Sarah, Marcos, and Yuki. They left 2 crew members aboard the Wandering Star with strict orders to jump away at the first sign of trouble. The airlock cycled with a whisper of ancient hydraulics. The inner door opened onto a corridor that stretched into darkness until they stepped through. Then light bloomed in the walls themselves, a soft bioluminescent glow that traveled ahead of them like a welcoming path. "It knows we're here," Sarah breathed. "The station is aware." The corridor walls were translucent crystal, and within them floated symbols, not written on the surface but suspended in the material itself. 3-dimensional glyphs that rotated slowly. Sarah moved to one wall, her hand hovering over it without touching. "I can't read it," she said, frustration coloring her voice. "But the structure is familiar. Mathematical base 12 system, similar to ancient Vrex, but more elegant, more fundamental." They walked for what felt like hours, through corridors that branched and merged in, patterns that seemed to follow some cosmic logic Alara couldn't grasp. And then, without warning, the passage opened into a chamber so vast that Alara's breath caught in her throat. The throne hall. The room was circular, easily 200 meters in diameter, its domed ceiling lost in shadow high above. The walls were covered floor to ceiling in crystalline panels, each one displaying a holographic recording. Elara saw hundreds of different species, some humanoid, some utterly alien, approaching something at the chamber's center, and at the center, raised on a dais of black stone veined with silver, sat a throne. It was simple in design, a high-backed chair carved from the same obsidian material as the station itself. But there was nothing simple about the presence it commanded. The air around it seemed heavier, charged with potential like the moment before lightning strikes. "Look at the walls," Marco said, his voice barely a whisper. Elara tore her gaze from the throne to the holographic records. She watched as one species after another approached the throne. Some knelt before it. Some tried to sit. Some even attempted to destroy it. Every time the same result, rejection. The throne remained dark. The station remained silent. And the petitioners left or didn't leave at all. Are those bodies? Yuki pointed to the shadows around the dais. Sarah approached carefully, her scanner extended. Skeletal remains, multiple species. Carbon dating suggests a range from 3 million years ago to 50,000. She looked up, her face pale. Some of these people died waiting. Elara moved closer to the wall panels, studying the symbols etched between the holographic displays. Her translation software struggled with the language. But fragments came through. Only the blood of the first may sit. The throne knows its children. When the air returns, the light returns. This was a test, Sarah said, piecing it together. A filter. The station is waiting for someone specific, someone with the right genetic code. The progenitors, Marcos breathed. This is a progenitor installation. The word hung in the air like a prayer. The progenitors, the theoretical first civilization, the ones who supposedly seeded life across the galaxy before vanishing into myth. Every species had legends about them. None had proof until now. "We need to leave," Yuki said firmly. "This is beyond us, way beyond us. We report this, let the council..." "No." Elara's voice was quiet but absolute. She was staring at the throne, and that pull she'd felt before was stronger now. Undeniable. It wasn't calling to her exactly. It was more like recognition. "Captain?" Sarah's voice was concerned. Elara had never told her crew about her medical history, about the genetic screening she'd undergone as a child when she'd gotten sick, and the doctors couldn't figure out why. About how they'd found anomalies in her DNA, markers that didn't match any known human haplogroup. Unusually archaic, they'd called it. Like your genes forgot to evolve. She'd been a curiosity in medical journals for a year before the novelty wore off and everyone moved on. But Elara had never forgotten the way the geneticist had looked at her, with a mixture of fascination and unease. "It's like you're a throwback to something older, something we haven't seen in the human genome for hundreds of thousands of years." "Captain, what are you doing?" Marcos's voice was sharp with alarm. Elara realized she was walking toward the throne. She couldn't remember deciding to move, but her feet were carrying her forward, past the skeletal remains of those who'd tried and failed, up the 3 steps to the dais. "Elara, stop," Sarah called out. "We don't know what it'll do." "I know," Elara said softly, and somehow impossibly she did know. She knew the throne wouldn't hurt her. She knew it had been waiting. She knew that every step of her life, every choice, every detour, every accident that had led her to become a salvage captain instead of a medical curiosity, had been leading to this moment. She stood before the throne. Up close, she could see it wasn't entirely black. Silver veins ran through it like circuitry, like blood vessels pulsing with the faintest rhythm. A heartbeat waiting to wake behind her. She heard her crew's protests, but they sounded distant, muffled, as if she were hearing them through water. Elara sat down. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. The throne was cool beneath her, solid and real. Then warmth. It started where her hands touched the armrests, spreading up her arms, across her shoulders, down her spine. Not painful, welcoming, like coming home after a lifetime of wandering. The silver veins in the throne blazed to life, light racing through them in patterns that matched the rhythm of her heartbeat. The illumination spread outward, flowing into the dais, then across the floor in geometric patterns, then up the walls until the entire chamber was alive with light. The holographic panels flared to life, no longer showing failed attempts but displaying something new. A double helix. 2 of them side by side. One rotated slowly, ancient and pristine. The other pulsed in time with Alara's heart. "Oh my God," Sarah whispered. It's comparing her DNA to a template." Numbers appeared in a script that suddenly made sense to Alara, as if the throne had downloaded understanding directly into her mind. Genetic markers, matching sequences, percentage calculations, 9.7% match, the closest in 3 million years of testing. A voice filled the chamber, not through speakers, but through the air itself, through the bones of the station, through the crystalline walls. It was neither male nor female, neither old nor young. It simply was. Descendant recognized. The throne pulsed with warmth. Genetic drift. Minimal. Isolation period. Optimal. Control group. Viable. Alara's crew stood frozen, watching as the station's AI, dormant for millions of years, woke fully for the first time since the silence began. Welcome home. Daughter of the progenitors, and in that moment, sitting in the throne her ancestors had built before humanity learned to make fire, Alara Chen understood the truth that would shake the foundations of every civilization in the galaxy. Humanity hadn't found the progenitor's legacy. Humanity was the progenitor's legacy. The throne had finally found its heir. And across the galaxy, ancient sensors began to broadcast a signal that hadn't been heard in 3 million years. The first seat is claimed. The children have returned. The inheritance protocol. The light from the throne pulsed in rhythm with Alara's heartbeat, and with each pulse, more of the station came alive. Crystalline panels throughout the chamber shifted from dormant black to luminous silver, and holographic interfaces materialized in the air around her. Star charts, genetic diagrams, mathematical formulae that seemed to describe the fundamental architecture of life itself. Alara tried to stand, but the throne held her gently, not with physical force but with a sensation of incompleteness, as if standing now would be like leaving a sentence unfinished. The voice, the keeper she somehow knew to call it, spoke again, and this time the words carried weight that pressed against her mind. Biological authentication complete. Neural interface initializing. Descendant Alara Chen, do you accept the inheritance protocol? Wait, Alara managed, her voice hoarse. I don't understand. What inheritance? What protocol? The holographic display shifted, coalescing into a single massive image floating above the throne. A galaxy, rendered in perfect detail, with thousands of points of light highlighted in gold. Explanation commencing, the keeper said. And suddenly Alara wasn't just hearing the words, she was experiencing them. Knowledge flowing directly into her mind like water filling an empty vessel. 8 million years ago, the progenitors had looked upon an empty galaxy and decided to fill it with life. They had mapped every habitable world, every planet that could sustain organic chemistry, every moon that might shelter consciousness. And then, with technology that blurred the line between science and creation, they had seeded it all, not with random chance, but with purpose. They had encoded their own genetic material into the foundation of life itself, a template, a blueprint, a message written in DNA that said, "We were here. We made you. Remember us." But evolution, Sarah whispered. And Alara realized her crew could hear the keeper's explanation too, could see the holographic history lesson unfolding. Evolution changes things. Genetic drift, mutation, selection pressure. Correct, the keeper acknowledged. The progenitors understood this. They expected it. They welcomed it. The hologram shifted, showing the thousands of seeded worlds spinning forward through time. On most of them, life exploded with variation. Environmental pressures, radiation, random chance. All of it sculpted the original template into new forms. Scales and fur, tentacles and wings, hive minds and individual consciousnesses. The galaxy blossomed with diversity. But one world, a small blue planet in an unremarkable spiral arm, remained different. Earth, Marcos breathed. Isolation protocol active, the keeper explained. One world in each galactic sector was designated as a control group. Minimal environmental pressure. Optimal conditions for genetic preservation. Earth was Sector 771's control world. Alara watched as Earth's history unfurled in fast forward. Single-celled organisms becoming complex life, fish crawling onto land, Mammals spreading across continents. Evolution happened, yes, but slowly, carefully, within protective parameters that she now understood had been engineered from the beginning. Humanity hadn't evolved in isolation by accident. They'd been preserved intentionally, kept close to the original template while the rest of the galaxy experimented with variation. "We're the control group," Ilara said softly. "The unchanged children." Affirmative, genetic drift in Homo sapiens 0.3%. From progenitor baseline. All other known species, 2367%. Drift, you are the closest living relatives to the builders of this galaxy. Yuki let out a sharp laugh that bordered on hysteria. "So we're not the new kids on the block. We're the old kids, the original recipe while everyone else is new and improved." "The throne," Sarah said, pieces clicking into place in her analytical mind. "It's been testing everyone who came here, scanning their DNA against the progenitor template, but humanity never reached the stars until now. We developed space travel late, stumbled into FTL almost by accident. By the time we could reach this place, millions of years had passed, and millions of species had tried and failed," Ilara added, her eyes moving to the skeletal remains scattered around the chamber. Some of those beings had died thousands of years ago, still hoping the throne might accept them. "The throne recognizes genetic continuity," the keeper said. "Not superiority, not worthiness, only kinship. You are recognized because you are family." The warmth from the throne intensified, and Ilara felt something shift in her awareness. The station wasn't just a building. It was a library, an archive, a treasure vault of knowledge accumulated over millions of years before the progenitors vanished. Archive access granted. Defensive systems online. Manufacturing facilities. Operational. Awaiting Heir's command. Holographic interfaces materialized around Ilara, each one representing a different system. She saw weapons capable of sterilizing planets, ships that could cross the galaxy in hours, terraforming technology that could reshape worlds, biological engineering that could rewrite the genetic code of any species. The power of gods waiting for her word. "Why?" Ilara asked. "Why build all this? Why seed the galaxy and then disappear? What happened to the progenitors?" The chamber darkened, and the holographic display shifted to show something Ilara wished she hadn't asked to see. War. Not the territorial conflicts or resource disputes that defined modern galactic politics, but something deeper, more fundamental. She watched as the progenitors split into factions, not over land or power, but over philosophy. One side believed that their seeded children should remain pure, should preserve the original genetic template, should resist evolution and change. They saw variation as corruption, mutation as betrayal. The other side believed the opposite, that evolution was the point, that diversity was strength, that their children should be free to become whatever the universe shaped them into. The debate became argument. Argument became conflict. Conflict became war, and the war consumed everything. "They destroyed themselves," Ilara whispered, watching worlds burn in holographic fire, over the question of whether their children should stay the same or be allowed to change. "Affirmative," the keeper said, and for the first time, Ilara heard something like sorrow in its voice. The progenitors failed the most fundamental test. They could not accept that their children would be different from themselves. This station was built in the final days. A failsafe, a message. A new hologram appeared, a single progenitor standing where Ilara now sat. The resemblance was striking. Humanoid, bilateral symmetry, forward-facing eyes. But the expression was what caught Ilara's attention. Grief, hope, and determination mixed together. The figure spoke, and the keeper translated, "To whoever sits here, to whatever descendant of our blood claims this throne, learn from our failure. We gave you diversity and then feared it. We gave you freedom and then tried to control it. We scattered you across the stars and then fought over whether you should remain as we made you. Do not repeat our mistakes. Do not fear change. Do not demand purity. Accept what you have become, all of you, and be better than we were." The message ended. The hologram faded. Ilara sat in silence, processing the weight of what she'd learned. "Captain," Marco said urgently, breaking the moment. "We're picking up FTL signatures. Multiple vectors. A lot of them. Ilara's mind was still half merged with the station's systems, and she felt the approaching ships before Marcos finished his report. Dozens of them, converging from across the sector. She knew their identities without needing to check. The Ascendancy, the Collective, the Covenant, and a dozen smaller powers. The station's awakening, Sarah said, understanding dawning. When the throne activated, it must have sent out some kind of signal. A broadcast. Correct, the Keeper confirmed. The ancient protocols dictate that when the first seat is claimed, all sentient species must be notified. The heir has returned. The inheritance is active. And now everyone knows, Yuki said grimly. They know humanity has access to progenitor technology. They know we've been recognized by the throne. Ilara could feel the station's defensive systems humming to life, weapons charging, shields deploying. She could activate them with a thought. She could vaporize the approaching fleets before they even knew they were under attack. She could claim this station, this technology, this legacy for humanity alone. Secure Earth's dominance for the next 1,000,000 years. Become the new progenitors, the new rulers of the galaxy. The throne pulsed warmly, not encouraging her, just presenting the option. It would obey whatever she commanded. What are you thinking, Captain? Sarah asked quietly. Ilara closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the choice before her. She thought about the progenitors tearing themselves apart over purity versus change. She thought about the species approaching, the Vrex with their crystalline biology, the Kashari with their swarm consciousness, the Talmor with their methane metabolism. All of them so different from the original template. All of them children of the same ancient hand. She thought about the final message, be better than we were. Keeper, Ilara said, her voice steady. Can you open a broadcast channel? All frequencies, all species. Affirmative, awaiting message. Her crew stared at her. Marcos opened his mouth to protest, then closed it. They knew that look on her face. This is Captain Ilara Chen of Earth, speaking from the progenitor station designated Nexus Alpha. Ilara began, her words carrying across subspace to every ship, every station, every listening post within range. 6 hours ago, I sat in the first seat. The throne recognized my genetic lineage as matching the progenitor template. By ancient law, that makes humanity the designated heirs to this station and its contents. She paused, feeling the tension of countless species listening. I am not claiming it. The statement hung in space like a shockwave. The progenitors destroyed themselves fighting over whether their children should stay pure or be allowed to change. They failed because they tried to control evolution, to demand that their legacy remain exactly as they made it. I won't repeat their mistake. Ilara stood from the throne. The warmth released her now, accepting her choice, and looked at the holographic display of approaching ships. This station isn't a throne. It's a library. It's a record of where we all came from, the genetic heritage we all share, and it belongs to everyone. Captain, Yuki started, but Ilara raised a hand. This station isn't a throne. It's a library. It's a record of where we all came from, the genetic heritage we all share, and it belongs to everyone. Captain, Yuki started, but Ilara raised a hand. I'm declaring Nexus Alpha neutral ground. Any species can send representatives to study here, to learn here, to access the archives. Human, Vrex, Kashari, Talmor, it doesn't matter. We're all children of the same source, just different versions. Genetic heritage protocol activated, the Keeper announced. Station status, neutral archive. Custodian species, humanity. Keeper authorization, granted to all verified sentient species. Custodian, Sarah repeated, understanding. Not rulers, caretakers. We were left unchanged not to rule, Ilara said, repeating the thought that had crystallized in her mind. But to remember, to keep the record safe, to help everyone understand where they came from. That's the real inheritance, not power but memory. The approaching ships began to slow, their weapon systems powering down as the message spread. Ilara could see the tactical channels lighting up with chatter, confusion, relief, suspicion, hope. Some of them won't accept this, Marcos warned. The Ascendancy, at least. They'll see this as weakness. Let them, Ilara said. The progenitors' greatest weapon wasn't their technology. It was the diversity they created. Every species has something unique, something valuable. We're stronger learning from each other than fighting over who deserves to stand alone. 3 weeks later, The first council convened in the throne hall of Nexus Alpha. 47 species sent representatives, some humanoid, some utterly alien, some existing in environmental suits because the station's atmosphere would kill them otherwise. They stood in a circle around the throne, which remained empty except during formal ceremonies when Alara would sit as symbolic keeper. The holographic archives were open to all. Teams of scientists from a dozen worlds worked side by side, decoding progenitor genetic engineering, learning the principles of their faster-than-light travel, studying their philosophy and art. There were tensions. The Ascendancy had withdrawn their envoy after the first week, declaring humanity gene traitors who had squandered their birthright. The Covenant, conversely, had declared humans sacred, which brought its own uncomfortable complications. The Collective observed everything, with its typical inscrutable patience, but they were talking, learning, building something new. Alara stood before the throne. She'd made it a point never to sit in it casually, only for formal recognition ceremonies, and watched a human geneticist explain a progenitor DNA sequence to a Vrex crystallographer. Neither could have understood the other's biology a month ago. Now they were collaborating. "Do you think we made the right choice?" Sarah asked, standing beside her. Alara considered the question, watching as a young Kashari student accessed a holographic record of Earth's evolutionary history, with wonder in its compound eyes. "The progenitors gave us two gifts," Alara said finally. "Genetic heritage and the freedom to become something different from them. Every species in this room carries the first gift. We just happen to keep it more intact than most. And the second gift? The second gift is the choice we made. To not repeat their mistakes. To accept that being family doesn't mean being identical." Alara smiled. "We were given power and chose to share it. That's very human, I think. Maybe it's also very progenitor, the part of them that hoped we'd be better." The throne pulsed with soft light, approving. Far across the galaxy, in the archives of the Ascendancy's warfleet, military strategists plotted and planned. They would return to Nexus Alpha someday, they vowed, and claim what humanity had so foolishly given away. But in the throne hall, surrounded by species that had once been strangers and might someday be friends, Alara Chen felt something the progenitors had lost millions of years ago.